Hey, it's Matt Lansedell. Welcome to the Inspired to be Authentic YouTube channel, where we talk about everything authenticity. So my content is designed for sensitives, empaths, and gay men, but it is going to be beneficial for anybody looking to embrace more of their sensitive self. That's what this channel is all about. So if you are on a journey wanting to learn more about your authentic self, be inspired to be more of who you are authentically, then this is going to be a great channel for you to pick through some of my content. So today's video, I'm really excited to talk about this. We're going to be talking about how sex can be different for highly sensitive people. Okay, really excited to talk about this one. There's lots of juicy stuff in here to unpack. So this video is for you if you experience shame or fear around sex. You don't tend to get turned on by the things that society has traditionally told you that you should be turned on by. This is both for men and women. We have a lot of social conditioning around what we should be turned on by, and that might be different from what we actually are turned on by. You feel differently or misunderstood sexually. Your sexual nature is changing as you learn to embrace your sensitive nature. What you will get from this video, what is a highly sensitive person? I'm going to be briefly covering that. I have other videos that will teach you that, but I'm going to briefly cover that for people who are new to this concept. How your sensory processing sensitivity might impact sex, social conditioning around sex, and then I'm going to unpack 8 ways that I've identified that sex can be different for highly sensitive people. Most of these are from my own personal experience, but some of them are from scientific literature around sensory processing sensitivity. So I'll be unpacking those for you guys. For those of you who have not subscribed to this channel, please subscribe and hit the bell icon so you get notified when I release a new video each week. You can also follow me on Instagram at Inspired to be Authentic, where I basically post a lot of written content and some video content that is not posted on this channel. So the content is quite different. So definitely give me a follow over there, and that can be found in the link in the description below in my link tree. All right, let's hop right in. So I want to first off just have a little side note to begin, saying that just because I've identified these things, or there's some of this stuff is in scientific literature around being highly sensitive, does not mean that it will apply to you, because everybody's sensory processing sensitivity is different. So if you're like, well, wait a minute, I'm a highly sensitive person and I don't really identify with these things at all, there might be a few different reasons why that is, and I will explain them throughout the video. But you're not different or weird because you don't identify with some of these things. You might identify with some of them, and some of them you might not, and that's totally okay. Okay, so what is a highly sensitive person? So oftentimes in society we think of the word sensitive as being a synonym of being weak or being fragile or being delicate. Okay, and this isn't the case in this context. I'm talking about highly sensitive people are people who score high on a trait called sensory processing sensitivity. This means that their nervous systems are different. And this isn't a disorder, this isn't a disease, it is a trait, no different than neuroticism or agreeableness, or a temperament trait, any of these sorts of things. So highly sensitive people make up about 20% of the world's population, and like I said, they have a different nervous system structure that tends to be more on the sensitive nature. So there's 4 categories that define somebody who's highly sensitive. And it's categorized by the DOES acronym, DOES. So the first one is depth in processing. So people who are highly sensitive tend to process information a lot deeper, with a lot more depth and breadth, right? They go far and wide and deep with information that they're processing. So this tends to have an impact on people who are highly sensitive because they're processing so much information and so much stimulus is coming at them that they tend to get overstimulated, which is the next one. The next one is overstimulation. It's usually caused by a depth in processing or processing too much information in too little span of time. So overstimulation can happen in different domains. So some people experience their overstimulation in the auditory domain, the visual domain, the feeling. So maybe like they, not like being like touched or anything too much. So there's different domains that people experience them, but the three main ones are going to be emotional overstimulation, auditory overstimulation, and visual overstimulation. So loud noises, bright lights, these sorts of things will definitely overstimulate a highly sensitive person. The E in does is emotional reactivity. Okay, and this isn't necessarily always a bad thing, because emotional reactivity can be we're reacting or responding to stimuli, positive emotional stimuli, so joy and excitement and these sorts of things. But when we are emotionally reactive to more tougher emotions or more negative emotions, we can become more emotional, which is why people often associate sensitivity with people being easily hurt, their feelings being easily hurt. Well, likely this is just a response to emotional reactivity, that they're experiencing emotions very deeply, right? They're deep feelers. That's another way to frame sensitivity. And then the S is subtleties in your environment. So people that are highly sensitive tend to notice subtleties in their environment, different changes. They can notice people's moods changing. They can notice that somebody got a haircut, or that they shaved off their beard, or these sorts of things. We just are really perceptive. We have a strong ability to perceive in our environment. So we have a strong ability to be able to notice when things change in our environment, right? And these can be really, really great traits to have as a human being. Okay, so with this information, that's as deep as I'm going to go with SPS. Like I said, I have other videos, but I want to explain to you how sex can impact SPS, right? That's what the sensory processing sensitivity is. I'll just note, I'll refer to it as SPS moving forward. So if you think about all these characteristics, like processing information deeply, noticing and perceiving other people, overstimulation by different sort of sensory input, right? This definitely is going to have an impact on sex, because sex is a very stimulatory process and a thing that we engage in. We're always processing information, sexual information. Our own feelings can be categorized as processing information. So it's like, sex can become really overwhelming for some people when it is not, first of all, when they're not in tune with their own needs, but second of all, when somebody else isn't in tune with their needs, or isn't aware of their sensitive nature, this can impact sex, okay? So the social conditioning around sex is really fascinating, because this has happened to me in my transformation as I've learned to embrace my sensitivity. My sexual nature has completely changed. And this has been fascinating for me, because for many years I wasn't embracing my sensitivity, and I was denying my sensitive nature and the needs that are associated with that. And I was living in my mind when it comes to sex. So I got very, very used to having cerebral sex or egoic sex, right? Where we're in our ego, where we're being turned on by different things that maybe aren't embodied, right? So visual, porn, these sorts of things were very big turn-ons for me. And as I started going through my maturation, my spiritual maturation, I started to connect and embrace with my sensitive nature, and my sexual nature changed as well. Right. And for many years I was really, I was like, something's wrong with me. I feel like something's wrong with me. I'm not like everybody else. And I carried a lot of shame and a lot of fear around sex, because I felt like it wasn't okay for me to advocate for my needs, because I was different and I didn't want people to think I was weird. So these are things that are really important to note when it comes to the social conditioning around sex, because we need to be aware of these things so we can begin to meet the needs that are associated with our sensitivity. When we are hiding our sensitivity, we will be denying ourselves the needs that we need to be associated with our sensitive nature. And our sexual nature and our sensitive nature are so closely tied in, right? Especially when we're embodied and we're mature in our sexual development. They're very, very similar, and they're very unique and vulnerable and intimate aspects of ourselves, and there's a lot of crossover. So when we are aware of our sensitivity, we will become aware of the nuances of our sexual self. On the flip side, when we're not aware of our sensitivity and we're denying our sensitivity, because many of us wear masks and many of us have become so calloused and avoidant of our sensitivity, because remember, this is a trait and it's a genetic trait, so we can't change this about ourselves. So a lot of us cover it up, we hide who we are, and then a lot of us do what I did, is we become this sexual person that we think the world needs us to be, and we're not getting our needs met. Right, so this is really important to be aware of, that as you become more authentic and you embrace your sensitivity, your sexual desires are likely to change as well. Okay, and this likely will be who you've always been in your soul, right? But your mind and your ego and your social conditioning has told you to be something other than what you are, which is this process of walking ourselves home to ourselves, right? We are walking ourselves away from the conditioning and towards the authentic nature of who we actually are. And for a lot of us, that's confusing, because who am I after so many years of denying myself who I really am? Who really am I, right? And that's a process of self-discovery. And I have a video on authenticity, how to, what makes up your authentic self, and I'll tag that in the description below, so you can watch that, so you can start to get clear about some of the top traits of what it means to be authentic and live your authentic self, so you can start to practice these things and really get clear on what it is that you need and desire in this life, so you can become more in alignment with your authentic self. All right, so the last thing I want to note about sexual or social conditioning around sex is there's a massive shift happening on this planet right now, and I'm seeing it in myself, but I'm seeing it in my coaching, and I'm seeing it on a global scale. The feminine energy, and when I say feminine, masculine and feminine, I'm talking about yin yang, like energetics. We all have the yin and the yang inside of us, and for many years the patriarchal system has really suppressed the feminine, and we've all have this dominant masculine energy. And right now on the planet there's this shift happening where the feminine is rising to be in balance with the masculine, but the masculine is kind of being pulled down and the feminine is being pulled up. And this is impacting people greatly on this planet, and one of the ways that I'm seeing this is through sex. People's sexual nature is changing. People's perception of themselves and their gender is changing, and this is greatly impacting people. As the feminine rises, we go through a really uncomfortable deconstruction of our conditioning, and there might be a lot of shame and fear we move through. But when we move through it, we get closer to our authentic self, and we start to connect and feel like it's okay to be sensitive. It's okay to be, demisexual or these sorts of things, and we learn to embrace them. And I'm seeing that a lot on the planet right now, is people, especially younger generations, are really just coming into this world with this real balanced and integrated gender expression, right? Energetic expression. And so a lot of people are feeling more comfortable to share that they're demisexual or asexual or transgender or sensitive, or any of these things that we often associated with the feminine. We're carrying less shame around that now, and we're starting to embrace it, right? So that's really important to note here, because if you find that your sexual self or these things are changing about you, that's normal. That's what's happening on this planet right now, is we're going through a collective shift in how we perceive and relate to our feminine energy. So keep that in mind as you start to do this, self-discovery around your authenticity. All right, so 8 ways that sex can be different for highly sensitive people. Now that we've kind of set that context of what is a highly sensitive person, some of the social conditioning around it, let's go into these real juicy 8 things that I've identified that are really important for people that are highly sensitive. So the first one is sensitives tend to thrive in sex when an emotional connection is present. All right. Another term for this is demisexuality, right? So demisexuality is essentially when somebody requires emotional connection for sexual arousal. And I'm not saying that just because you desire emotional connection, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're demisexual, because demisexual is where you require it. In order for your body to become sexually aroused by somebody else, there needs to be a connection. an emotional connection. Okay. But sensitives tend to thrive when there is an emotional connection, because an emotional connection breeds trust and comfort. And because we often experienced being different and misunderstood when we were younger because we were sensitive, we often really desire to feel trust and connection with somebody before we become intimate with them, because we then have to disclose that, oh, I have these needs and I'm different, and my nervous system is different and I need sex to be this way, for me to enjoy it. Right, that requires a lot of trust and a lot of comfort and safety with somebody. So oftentimes that is really important, and it makes sex that much better for somebody who is highly sensitive. Number two, smells can make or break the sexual experience, right? If you look at, olfactory stimulation, that's something other highly sensitive people can, they're really, really impacted, and can become stimulated or overstimulated by smell. Right, so people that if a highly sensitive person doesn't like your smell, or you don't have good hygiene, this might be an area where a person who's highly sensitive might get easily turned off during sex. So again, it's just something to be mindful of if you're a highly sensitive person and you're noticing that smells are really important for you. There's ways you can advocate for, obviously cleanliness from your partner, making sure you choose a partner who your pheromones match with. I know that for me, that's really important. Like my partner's sense of or smell is really, really can be a huge turn on for me, right? So there's that aspect of it where it's can be something that limits that, but when you find somebody that you love their smell, it can be such a turn on, and it can be really, really powerful, to increase and enhance the sexual attraction between two people. Number three, sensitives tend to thrive in sensual connections. Okay, so the difference between sexual and sensual is, in my opinion, the pace, and the way to which we explore somebody, right? So sex is going to be a little bit of a quicker pace. It's going to be more built around, maybe more intensity, more penetration, these sorts of things, whereas sensuality is the invitation of the five senses into sex. So we may do some eye gazing, we may do some like light touching of the skin, we might play around with smells, we might whisper in the ear or nibble the ear, or these sorts of things. So it's a bit more of a slow down thing, because if you think about it, sex is intense and it can be overstimulating. So something that is a little bit more gentle and a little bit more subtle might be enough for a highly sensitive person. So if you're a non-highly sensitive person and you're wanting to relate sexually with a highly sensitive person, it's just really important to communicate and be aware of their body language and what's going on for them. Are they enjoying this, right? Maybe just even asking them or whispering in their ear, are you enjoying this? Does this feel good for you? If you're not really in tune with people's body language, because oftentimes people who are highly sensitive, they're very expressive and their body language will tell you if they're enjoying it or not. But a lot of, some people don't have the ability to be able to tune into people's body language as easily. So just a simple ask if they're enjoying it might be, it might go a long way. So sensitives, number four, sensitives can easily become overstimulated in sex. I think I've explained this one enough, but it is really important to be aware, if you're a highly sensitive person, of constantly checking in with yourself. Because if we've been denying ourself our connection to our sensitive self, and we've been just doing sex how other people want it done because we feel that we have to meet their needs, and we people please in sex, to reclaim that, we need to really be checking in. What do I need? What makes me feel good? What are my likes and dislikes in sex? Get clear with this. And this is an opportunity to practice consent, right? Get your partners to check in with you. Tell them, I want you to check in with me before you do something to my body, right? So it allows you the time to slow down and say, yep, this feels good. My overstimulation is at about a 5 out of 10. That's manageable. I can proceed. But if your overstimulation gets to a 8, 9, or 10, and you're not enjoying the sex anymore, then maybe this is an opportunity for you to, just put your hand on your partner's chest, or grab their hand and just say, you know what, I need to slow this down a bit, because it's feeling like it's going at a pace that's a bit overwhelming for me, right? So advocate for your needs, because overstimulation is it's no fun when it's happening in sex in a way that feels uncomfortable, right? Okay, so number 5, some sensitives have a low pain tolerance, and sex needs to be more pleasure focused. All right, so this definitely isn't for everybody. Just because you're highly sensitive doesn't mean you have a low pain tolerance, because for myself, I have a high pain tolerance, and I like certain things that may incite pain in others. And so it's important to, again, check in with yourself, and advocate to your partner or partners that this is, you know, my threshold. This is what I enjoy, and maybe it needs to be slowed down, maybe it needs to be sped up, whatever it might be, in order for you to have more pleasure. Because we've got to remember that this is an opportunity for you to get your needs met. We don't engage in sex just to please other people. We engage in sex so we can enjoy it as well. And it's this dance, it's this exchange between two people, or 3 or 4 people, doesn't whatever floats your boat. And that's where this becomes really really important, right? To just advocate and let people know that this feels good, this doesn't feel good. Number 7 is take it slow, so you can remain present and embodied in the sexual experience, right? Oftentimes we are taught to speed up, right? When somebody advocates for slower pace in relating or sexual activity, oftentimes we get labeled either by ourselves or by society as being prudes, or being, you know, no fun, or these sorts of things, and we judge ourselves and we judge that. So then we just do things, we take it fast, we move fast, because we think that that's what the other person wants, right? But when you start advocating for a pace that is works with you, you'll notice other people will be like, yeah, this feels good for me too, because oftentimes we're all just operating off of this conditioning that we've inherited, that we think sex needs to be fast, and we need to engage in it right away, and that the woman should be the one that is courted, and the man should be the one that always wants sex. Like, these are outdated. They never were dated. They were just always fed to us, because it's yeah, whatever, it supports the porn industry, or it supports any of these big industries that are pro us, you know, procreating, or pro us, whatever. So it's just really important to slow down the connection to the speed that works for you. And again, this might take trial and error. A lot of these things I'm teaching in this video are going to take trial and error, because especially if you've been denying your sensitivity and your sexuality related to your sensitivity for so long, it's almost like relearning about yourself. And that's what I'm going through right now in my own life, is I'm relearning what turns me on. I'm relearning how my SPS shows up in sex. So again, be patient with yourself, be compassionate with yourself, and don't be afraid to communicate your needs. This is really, really important, okay? And that's why taking it slow can be good, because when you take it slow, you develop knowability, you develop reliability, you develop commitment, trust, all these things with your partner, and it makes it easier for you to be your authentic self in sex, right? That's key. So the last thing, number 8, is a term called postcoital dysphoria, okay? PCD. So this is a rare, or I shouldn't say rare, I would say it's a phenomenon. It's a phenomenon that we experience as humans, or sensitives, where we become emotional either during or after sex, and usually post-coital dysphoria is going to be after sex. So it's like this state where you're in this really heightened emotional state, because you just literally connected with somebody on a soul level. You had really amazing, beautiful, passionate sex, and it just the emotion is so overwhelming that the physiological response is to cry. So if this has happened to you, or this does happen to you, this is normal, right? This happens to people, and you know, oftentimes I think people judge themselves, or they carry shame around this. But you know, if you're having amazing sex that's good enough that you cry after, I think that's pretty awesome. So I would say continue to have that kind of sex, and continue to connect with another soul in that beautiful way, because I think that is pretty magical. So So those are the four, or those are the eight ways that sex can be different from you. Now I want to hear from you. I want to hear about how were you impacted by this information? I know it's, for some people it's a lot. It's very different to hear this. I want to know how you were impacted. So how is sex different for you as a highly sensitive person? And what are your unique sexual needs? I would love to hear this or to read this in the comments below. So please drop a few comments, let me know your thoughts, and I will definitely be responding to these ones because I love talking about this sort of stuff. But anyway, thanks for tuning into this video, and I look forward to creating more content for you beautiful people. Take care.